Welcome everyone to this episode of All the Good Titles Were Taken. Appreciate you being here. Well, you know what? I can't hate Windows enough. I don't think anyone else hates Windows enough except for those that have finally woken up to the fact of the crap that they're doing. So, you want to know what? We've got another video today that we're going to react to, covering more of the reason why people should wake up and actually maybe get rid of Windows altogether. I think the more that people pull away from Microsoft and move to the different Linux distros, but companies will start seeing that, I know what, maybe we should start making our software for both Mac, Windows, and Linux. I'm hoping that's true. Definitely, it has been a learning curve moving to Linux, a little bit, not so much. Everything else has been very smooth, and I've now been on Linux for a week now, and so it's been a learning curve. It's been fun, but definitely there are some distros that are going to be easier for the normal person to do. Me, I have at least a little bit of computer background and stuff, built my own servers and built my own computers, and so I have a fairly good grasp, but most people that are just buying off the shelf pre-built computer, man, they're not going to know quite as much. But we're going to get into the first video. That's not what I want. Let's do this. Let's see if we can. There we go. There we go. So this one comes from Tiny Tech Guy. So go and give him a follow if you like his content, and let's get into this.
Microsoft, what are you doing? Microsoft has been making a lot of interesting decisions recently, all of which range on a scale from pointless to downright concerning from a security standpoint. You've got
anyone have problems with the last update? One thing I've noticed with the Microsoft updates in the past, mainly before the switch over to Linux, I again said that, like I've said, I've built my own servers and stuff, and so I have all my drives mapped out and connected. And every single time Windows would do an update, I would have to remap all of my drives to my server every time. And and on top of that, Windows playing around with it, it should just be an update, and then everything should just work properly. But this last update, if you check out Clownfish TV, they've reported on it too, is that that Microsoft had to do an emergency push of an update to kind of backtrack some of the update from the last one, because it was breaking computers. It wasn't allowing computers to go into sleep mode. It wasn't letting computers shut off. It was completely throttling, or just not showing any kind of graphics because of if you had like an NVIDIA card. I mean, what a damn mess. I mean, this is what they get for canning their QA. And of course, they're continuing to push the Copilot. I mean, everything.
Things like forcing Copilot onto everything and everyone. Ads, advertisements, everywhere in the operating system that you paid for. Don't even get me started on the recall feature that they almost rolled out and had to rewind on that because it takes a snapshot of everything you've done on your PC and allows you to roll that back. It's an absolute security nightmare. To top it all off, they are wanting to make Windows an agentic operating system. That's disgusting. So maybe it's time to start looking at some alternatives. All of that in mind is what brought about the idea for today's presentation, which is Linux right for you? AKA.
In the case for me, I've already kind of said yes, and I'm starting to play with some of the distros. Current distro I'm using right now and exploring and learning is Zorn OS. But I also have Ubuntu that I can that I'm going to be testing out. I also have Mint. Now, the nice thing about distros is that you can run them right off of a thumb drive. So you don't even have to commit to it. You can test it to make sure it works on all of your equipment, make sure all the drivers work, make sure everything works properly before you actually commit to it. I just flat out installed Zorn, mainly because it's just, I was just that tired of Microsoft forcing updates and then me just losing complete control of my system. Because they're definitely doing the WEF, you will own nothing and you'll be happy. And I don't like that. This is my system. I built it, my hardware, my computer. I want full control of my computer. I don't want some company doing weak security and taking screenshots. Why? I know it's for their AI, but it's ridiculous. It's like they don't need to be doing this. And the fact that they don't give an opt-out, an easy opt-out of it, or a strip down, this is the reason I left Windows.
Who should really swap to Linux, or at least consider it, and who really should not swap to Linux or even consider it. I'm going to get into a lot of topics, but the first thing that I want to address is the elephant in the room, the name change for Microsoft, which this has been floating around and upset even the
Microsoft
CEO of Microsoft, and that, of course, is the lovely company name of Microslop. I wanted to address this and get this out of the way. Microslop is very funny. All right, let's just address that. Let's all take it in for a second. Here we go. All right, let's get started. As I alluded to in the introduction, Microsoft has been having a lot of missteps and a lot of mistakes recently. I wanted to address a lot of those that I personally have experienced both from a general user standpoint and a professional standpoint, starting with
correctly. Then Garatina. Greetings. How are you doing today?
Copilot. Copilot is Microsoft's AI agent. It's a big thing that they're trying to push right now. AI is the big buzzword. Every company on the face of the planet has to have something with an AI agent or an AI assistant or whatever, and Microsoft's just so happens to be Copilot. Did you?
AI. I've talked about this on other shows. I am not afraid of AI. I'm afraid of who are programming AI. I just really starting to get nervous because, again, AI is being put into every damn thing. And like in the case of Windows, you can't even opt out of the thing. You've got to go through this long list of ways to disable and get rid of Copilot. And on top of that, you can definitely tell that Microsoft is paying YouTube because they've been taking down videos of people showing how to disable these features. Again, showing you don't own your computer when it comes to the operating system. Because again, this is the reason why it's a plus to go to Linux, is because you actually control it. It's open source. It's free. You can do whatever you want. You can program it however you want. And you're not going to have some overarching evil company like Microsoft that's going to sit there and then flip everything back on. Or if you try to teach people on how to actually use the operating system, have a company come down and then start banning and blocking videos. Doing okay. Just hit, well, congratulations, 6,000 over the weekend and changed my rank from sergeant to lieutenant. Congratulations. Eventually I will get there. It's a grind. It's taking time. It'll get there.
You asked for this? I didn't ask for this. I didn't want this. So that's leading to a lot of frustration, and reasonably so, because Windows is not a free operating system. You have to pay for a license. If you buy a computer from a store, the licensing fee is baked into the price of the computer. So you're paying for this thing, and they're adding in features and an AI agent that you really didn't ask for and you didn't want. And it's a bit disingenuous because with that, the next bullet point that I have here is that it seems to me like it's a bunch of billionaires really wanting to push this AI agent and really wanting to tell consumers, general users, professional users, how to use their PC.
I think they're trying to use like the Steve Jobs model. Consumers don't know what they want until you show them what they want. I mean, it was kind of a philosophy they did with like the iPad, iPod, iPhone, those innovative feature things. Most people didn't even know anything about it, never had considered it, never even had dreamed about it. And all of a sudden there's the product that you can actually go and get. And now it's available and now people want it. And I think Microsoft and a lot of these companies that are pushing the AI think, well, the reason why no one's asking really for it, it's because they don't know they want it, but we're going to make them want it by shoving it down their throats. Again, talking about the AI, it's like you at least can interact and you can choose to use like Grok or use other AI models. You choose to use them. Microsoft, they're just forcing it in. And on top of that, the CEO of Microsoft is trying to really push people to try it out, try to use it. And it's like, no, I'm good. I don't want to. I want to be able to control my own operating system. I want to control my own computer. And Microsoft's taken that away. So you want to know what? I can leave Microsoft. You're not that important. And I think it's time for you guys to get off your high horse. And it's time for you guys to take a bit of a hit.
Them, it's not an operating system that we have purchased and we want to customize and set up how we want it. We want what we want on there, and we don't want the stuff that we don't want on there. It's this group of investors and billionaires and stuff saying, this is how you want to use your computer. You want this AI agent in everything. You want this in every corner and nook and cranny of your PC. Trust us. That's what you want, I promise. So then it begs the question, and I'll get into this a little bit later, why is it everywhere? They want you to adopt it no matter what. And so they're going to bake it into everything, and it's just got its greasy little fingers into every little aspect of Windows now. And it can
They want. There we go. See, I fixed my camera. Simple as that. Microsoft essentially is telling their customers, you want this, you have to have this, and we're not going to let you do anything other than that. We're going to jam it into everything and possible.
continues to get worse as time goes on. Moving on from the AI agent, we get into the controversy that was the TPM 2.0 chip requirement. When I say TPM 2.0, do you know what I'm talking about? You're probably a PC enthusiast, so yeah, you probably do know what I'm talking about. But I would wager to say that the vast majority of people have no idea what that means.
Honestly, I never even had heard of the TPM 2.0 chip until Windows 11. I honestly had no clue what it was, and then all of a sudden it was talking about it for needing it for Windows 11 when it came to the upgrade. And the fact that Microsoft took it upon themselves to obsolete a bunch of computers with perfectly fine hardware. And then on top of that, stopping the support for Windows 10, a perfectly fine operating system. How you doing, Vagabond? Hail.
So to prove this, I actually texted my dad, who's pretty tech savvy, and said, do you know if your computer has a TPM 2.0 chip? Because you're gonna need it if you want to upgrade to Windows 11. This was his response. He did not know what I was talking about. The general population may not know what that is, and so they go to upgrade their current computer from Windows 10 to Windows 11. It says you are not compatible, you cannot upgrade, your computer is now obsolete. And essentially what that's done is created e-waste. What it comes down to is it forces hardware upgrades, be it your motherboard or your CPU, or for somebody that doesn't tinker and just goes out and buys an entirely new system, it's forcing that hardware upgrade even though your current hardware is perfectly fine. It just
Exactly. That and the thing about it is, I'm almost wondering if Microsoft kind of did that in conjunction with maybe hardware distributors, hardware PC builders such as like Dell. Was there communication that this was going to happen and they were forcing to try to get it because a lot of people were not buying computers, especially right now with the climate. A lot of people don't have that disposable cash to sit there and buy hardware, so they haven't been buying it. Not to mention right now with all this AI garbage that's been being pushed out there. If you've recently checked the pricing for RAM, it's been jumping month after month, more and more expensive, because guess where all that RAM's going to? Data centers to actually be able to operate and run AI. Computer hardware in itself is just getting more and more expensive because they're all going into these freaking data centers.
doesn't have this chip that is specified by Microsoft to be able to install Windows 11. I will say shortly after telling my dad that, he did discover that his PC has a TPM 2.0 chip. He found out how to do that, so that's cool, but whatever. I told him I told him I'd put that in here. And one of the greatest things that Windows 11 has started doing is you can't have a local account. What they're trying to do is get everyone to have a Microsoft account. Instead of creating a local user account that's just your name and a password, they want you to have a Microsoft online account that is tied to the computer that you have to use to log in and access everything. The worst part of this,
I believe they can still do it if you have like the enterprise one because of businesses, but even that still allows a lot more transmission of your data. Businesses are starting to see this, and I think we might be getting to a video today also of countries are getting rid of Windows 11 and looking for alternatives. The healthcare system in this country, Windows 11 opens up to violating HIPAA. It taking screenshots that if they actually institute that into the system, that violates HIPAA.
whole thing is that people have found workarounds. You could launch a command prompt and put in some commands to get around this, but it seems like every time somebody discovers a new way to do this, Microsoft patches it out. They
patch it out, or the channels on YouTube specifically that show you how to circumvent that get their videos taken down. Because again, Microsoft feels that once you've bought, again, this is the whole point. I'm a very big pro advocate for physical media because you don't own it. Again, he said right here, licensing fee. You don't own the operating system. Even though you've bought a copy, you don't actually own it because you're just getting a licensing fee. So Microsoft still owns the operating system that's on your computer and have complete control over it.
want you to log into this Microsoft account, and that's because it's your PC, but their control. Which leads me into the next point, which is telemetry. As time goes on and they integrate more and more of the AI agent and move towards this agentic operating system, if you peek under the hood, the whole reason that they want you to sign into Microsoft account, they want you to use the AI agent, they want you to use Microsoft Edge, all ties back to telemetry, and that is so that they can track everything that you do. They want to know how you're using your PC, what you're looking for, what you're into, what your likes are. And the reason that they're doing all of that and collecting all this data, of course, goes back to
advertising. Yeah, Vagabond, on all of my PCs, I always went with the Pro version just because it had a lot more features, a lot more things unlocked. I did find it a lot easier to have those accesses in a lot of cases to be able to like use remote desktop and stuff like that. If you had like, cause I used, Microsoft Windows actually on one of my servers, which I regret doing that. And I've already swapped that over, but I could at least, I could just have my unit off to the side with nothing in, but I could remote into the desktop to do everything from it. So my server essentially didn't need to have a monitor or anything connected to it to be able to access it and take care of stuff. I have stuff now that just runs through essentially a local website, and it makes it so much easier to maintain my server that way.
Advertisements are freaking everywhere. Websites, even YouTube, you know, everywhere you go.
Have you ever noticed that? I mean, you can definitely tell. They say like your phone's not listening to you or your computer's not listening to you. But how many times have you gotten like targeted ads? You were talking about something and all of a sudden you start seeing ads for it. I've seen it plenty of times. Yeah, the phones are listening to you. The computers are listening. If you got a mic attached to your computer, the thing's listening to you. And with all of this stuff, when it comes to the ads, Microsoft, yeah, they're targeting the ads because you want to know what? That's income for them. Essentially, it's the same reason why I believe, let's see, what company? Oh, I forgot to say hi to you. Sorry about that. How you doing, Mr. Beak? How you doing today? Walmart bought a TV company, and because that TV company has smart TVs, it's now an ad platform for Walmart. More income for them because they can sit there and put ads that they sell for on their TVs. I don't believe it's the Roku TVs. I'm blanking on which brand it was that Walmart just bought. It was about, I would say, maybe a year ago. They had bought a TV company, so they own the software now, and then they can sit there and just just push ads. And that's what Microsoft was doing. It started under Windows 10 because you'd have the little tiles that were in the start menu and stuff, and it already had advertisements in there, but they were a little less custom. Now it's all over the place when it comes to Microsoft Windows 11. You got many different ways that they're doing it on top of that and pushing their own subscriptions. Microsoft Office, which isn't even Office anymore. It's now Copilot. Ads and stuff like that. Oh, you want to subscribe? Hey, you want to know what? Why don't you get a bigger space on the cloud?
There's advertisements. Microsoft now is doing an amazing thing and putting ads on your basic desktop. Microsoft is making money hand over fist with this kind of stuff, so it's not going to stop anytime soon. And if they're able to, they will track more and more and more, and it all comes back to serving up advertisements to the user. Then of course you have the security nightmare that was Recall. What Recall aims to be is a snapshot system that takes snapshots every so often of your entire screen or multiple screens. That way you can look back or roll your operating system back to that time a few minutes into the past. A bad actor that has compromised your machine can load in and see what you've done for the entire day. And why? Why is that going to be a thing? Why would they want to do that? I don't know. I cannot wrap my head around this. As a person that's a professional in the IT world, I cannot think of a single good use case for this other than...
I don't know if he's going to get into this, but they're claiming it's part of the AI software that you can then ask the Copilot about something that you were looking at earlier, and then they can recall it and give you that information back to you. That's their explanation behind it. But he's bringing up a good point that a lot of people that aren't tech savvy in any kind of way let a virus in or something like that, or their computer gets hacked. All that data, whether it be like credit card information or passwords and stuff like that, if you don't keep it in asterisk form and you pull it up just so you can see real quick if you typed it in correctly, that's all screenshotted, and it's such a security nightmare and privacy. Again, their explanation on all of this is the fact that, again, Microsoft, the operating system, you don't own it. You just have a licensing fee, the right to use it. It's hard to believe that Microsoft is not an evil company at this point. And I think there's a lot of these companies that are sitting here. You are no longer the customer. You're now the product. They're selling you because they get money for it.
And telemetry. But you know what I think the most egregious part of all of this is? Yes, there's security concerns, there's data privacy concerns, there's all of this stuff that just sucks. But the most egregious thing that I think comes from all of this is that the general user experience just sucks. Windows in the past had its quirks, it had its issues, but one thing at the end of the day, you knew how to use it and it was pretty reliable. With Windows 11, that doesn't seem to be the case anymore.
See, if a company made a dumb TV, I bet it would sell like hotcakes. I agree. If I could buy a dumb TV again, because they don't exist anymore. The only way you're going to find a dumb TV is going to recycle centers. If you go to any thrift store, they may have them on the shelf and stuff. That's the only places now you're actually going to find TVs that aren't smart. But yeah, definitely. Good old CRTs. I can't go that far back. I still like the quality. Plus, I like having a bigger screen, especially for my home theater.
That doesn't seem to be the goal. And as a whole, the user experience is just dreadful. So what next? What can I possibly do?
The user experience. I agree with him on that, because every single time, I brought this up earlier, is that every single time it seems like they push an update, I have to go through and fix everything that Windows broke. All my settings have been readjusted. Privacy things have been flipped back on that I had turned off that I didn't want them to have. I have to constantly remap my drives back to my server. It shouldn't be like that. And they are finding, too, that when you go through, it takes about an hour and a half. And now there's actually programs being made that you can, it's called to de-slop Windows 11. To shut those things off, a program has been created to be able to do that for you. But they're finding it takes like, an experienced user takes about an hour and a half to shut all that stuff off. And the reports are that after an update is pushed, all of those settings are right back on. And then you'd have to shut them off again. Again, proving the fact that you don't have control of the operating system. You truly do not when it comes to Microsoft Windows 11.
To get around this, what could I possibly do with the hardware that I have to get around Windows 11? I'm just going to have to use it and suck it up, right? Wrong. Did you forget? Linux. The penguin, the savior of all computers. Linux is an answer. I'm not going to say it's the answer, but it is an answer. Linux and the wide variety of distros to choose from can save your PC from the micro slop that Windows 11 has become. When you think of Linux, do you think of this? Do you think of a terminal window with a bunch of commands? Because if it is, you're wrong. And you should feel really bad about that for judging without knowing. I'm just saying, you should probably feel bad. Get that out of here. We don't need that anymore. Linux is different, baby. Linux in 2026 is just different. We'll get into that. But real quick, what is Linux? If you're unfamiliar with what Linux is, it is an open source, user-controlled operating system. It was created,
which Windows isn't. Hasn't been for years. I know I'm really shitting on Microsoft, but they deserve to be shit on at this point. I think they've gotten complacent because they've just been the default. And again, this was the plan by Bill Gates back at the birth of Microsoft by getting all of these licensings and software for PCs. Personal computer compatibility. I mean, they wrote the software, and since IBM, who actually created the PC, bought all of their stuff for those personal computers off the shelf, meant that they could clone. And what are they going to use? They're going to use Microsoft products, and just everyone just became so used to it that it's in every office, it's in schools, and everyone's just so used to it. So that's why it is harder. It's almost like it's almost like politics. We'll look at it from this aspect. If you look at the operating systems by and large, you have your two main operating systems. You have your Mac OS, which is it's proprietary and only on their hardware, and then you have Windows. You have two, and that's all you have. And it's really hard for a different operating system to start to grab any kind of foothold and move in, just like any kind of third party when it comes to politics. Uphill battle, and a lot of times they don't get a lot of the vote, and that's the case when it comes to like Linux right now, and a lot of the other OSs now. Ones that are starting to get a foothold a little bit more is, well, you want to know, Linux is starting to get a bigger market share. Let's see, what else have I seen? I've also seen that Mac OS, people are starting to buy Macs to get away from Windows. People are using Steam OS. Yeah. Windows became the Apple. Yeah. To a point. Yeah, I completely agree. And on top of that, well, and a bag of mine also said, well, let's see, instead of a TV, I just use a PC monitor. Yeah, that's true. You can do that, but to get a nice, really huge screen for like a movie theater experience, it's a little harder to do. But I get your point, because even with just getting a PC monitor, it's not a smart monitor. It's not a smart TV, so you still be able to do everything you want. And then if you want to do any kind of streaming services or anything like that, or you have a home server with Jellyfin or Plex, you can buy a small little PC that you can then connect to and then run it to your own personal server or something like that, if you have like a home networked streaming service, if you will. And that way you don't have to have the smart TV. You don't have to be connected to the internet, because it's another thing with a lot of these smart TVs. You got to be connected to the internet to even get the damn thing to work. Everything has got to be online.
Created by Linus Torvalds. I know I said that wrong, and I apologize. In 1991, and since its conception has been an open source, free to use operating system. I think Linux has a bit of a stigma of being complex. Again, you think of operating systems, you think of Windows, or you think of Mac OS. Linux is saved for those hardcore guys that sit, in the back of the bus. And Linux is not as complex as you think. It's got a very easy to use and easy to install user interface with most of the distributions that you can find. In fact, a lot of these distributions don't even require the use of the terminal at all. Now, you can use the terminal if you want to. If you want to get freaky, you can get freaky. But for a general user, somebody that doesn't really know their way around that, you don't have to use the terminal if you don't want to. And the best thing is, the install and all of these distributions are compatible with old and new hardware. Just because.
And I agree. When I was so far with my messing around with the distros, I've only gone to the terminal once, and that was to try some things because I was trying to use the translation layer to try to get Filmora working properly. And I've sent messages off to Filmora, Wondershare, to say, hey, you might want to consider making a Linux version of your video editing software, because I'm about to leave you, and I think other people are going to as well, the more people that leave. Now, I did get Filmora to work through Wine in Linux. The only problem is that the communication error. So when I'm trying to download assets, it won't download. And so it's now a little bit of a battle to try to get that to work. But there are native Linux video editing software that I have downloaded right from their own store. And that's the other thing that's a positive that I found with the Linux, is that they have their own store. It'll find it, source it, download it, so you don't have to do command line installs and everything else that he's talking about, where in the past you would have to go to a terminal, put in a line of code, and then it would connect, download the software. Most of it now you can just download right from the store, and it's searching everything and giving you that stuff. And then with Wine or Bottles, there's another one, I think I'm blanking on it, that You can just download the install files of Windows when you have that installed and run it. And the system itself will just take care of the translation layer all by itself. Steam OS is another one that's starting to get a foothold as well. Same with Chrome OS, but you're now shifting one evil company to another one. You're going from Microsoft to Google. I mean, so you got your own trade-off. But people are switching to or buying PCs that have Chrome OS instead of actually even dealing with Microsoft altogether. Most people that, if you're just a casual user of a computer, you're using it for online, you're using it for like document creation and stuff like that. Well, yeah, Chrome OS is going to work for you. But one thing that Steam specifically did is that the Steam Deck and stuff like that is actually running Linux with a translation layer to be able to play the games. I think Steam is going to be the ones that are really going to drive it, and that's why Steam OS is going to be taking, I think, a bigger chunk of the Linux instead of just Linux itself. I think it's going to be Steam OS specifically when it comes to the gamers. I think they're going to go and just flat out install Steam OS just because of that translation translation layer that's automatically there and able to use for games. I have downloaded Steam onto Linux here, and I was playing Wolfenstein 3D. Played just fine. Sound was good. Played fine. I mean, granted, I haven't tried any of the AAAs, but so far, all the reports that I've seen and videos I've seen is that it works fine. I mean, especially on some of these AAA games. And on top of that, even though AAA is garbage right now, because studios don't know how to get their heads out of their ass and actually produce a good game. That being said, they're even running fine. And in fact, some gamers are reporting that they're actually getting better frames per second than they were getting with Windows, because there's a lot less overhead when it comes to system requirements and system usage when it comes to Linux compared to Windows. And that's because of all the background stuff that's happening with the AI software. I noticed this too, when Windows is installed, if you pull up your system monitor and look at it, you will see it constantly pinging and constantly moving, and when it comes to your network going to online, because it keeps hitting the network. It keeps downloading and sitting there communicating. Linux, when I have it up and I'm not running anything else and I don't have any kind of browsers open or anything like that, the line is staying still. It's not hitting anything. It's not constantly transmitting, unlike when I've found with Windows.
You're missing some arbitrary chip that Microsoft deemed necessary doesn't mean that your hardware is completely obsolete. It can run a Linux distribution, and you can get even more life out of your hardware. And of course, on the flip side of that, obviously it's going to work great with new hardware. In fact, in many cases, it's actually going to work better with new hardware than Windows. I keep saying distros. What is a distro? What am I talking about? Distribution. What am I talking about? If you think of the Linux kernel as the engine, the distro is the rest of the car, right? You've got your interior, your body, your paint, tires, everything like that. That is what the distro is. The distro is what really provides you with the experience of using the Linux operating system day to day. There's a wide variety of distributions ranging from absolute beginner to the hardest of hardcore hackers. When you look at the distros, it becomes obvious that Linux as a whole is very customizable to fit what you need. Let me tell you, gaming? Yes, oh yeah, don't mind if I do. Have you ever heard of the Steam Deck, huh? That runs Linux, and that plays a ton of games. I get into this a little bit later, but gaming in Linux has come such a long way, primarily thanks to Steam and the Steam Deck working on Proton, but we'll get into that later. The best part...
As I was talking about earlier, that's why I think when it comes to the market share of Microsoft Windows starting to come down, and that's Microsoft 11, because they're even showing that in the market share, Windows 8 has gone up in market share. Windows 7 has gone up in market share, and so has Windows 10. And yet Windows 11 is still coming down. It is still coming down. while older Windows that aren't even supported anymore. So now it's a security risk because, well, that's where the hackers are going, is to where most people are using it. A lot of the software has now either not been updated in years or now no longer supported. So yeah, you're going to have the security risks to going to it. Now, if you're running an old computer that is not connected to the internet in any kind of way, and it's just a standalone unit, well, yeah, going back to these old operating systems is fine. It's not going to cause any problems. It's not going to harm you in any kind of way because it's not connected to the internet. It's not connected to any kind of network. Well, yeah, it's its own little bubble. So it doesn't matter what operating system you're using on it because you're protected because it's not connected.
About Linux is that it is no nonsense. What you install is what you get, and you can customize it however you want. There's no telemetry, there's no ads, there's no forced accounts, no bloatware, there's no AI agent. Out of the box, whatever
the telemetry that I was talking about when it's saying they're pinging the network the entire time when I'm running Windows, that I notice in the system monitor, because I like to have the system monitor up from time to time, especially if I'm doing really heavy load tasks. And the thing is that my Windows system that I still have, I haven't logged into it in a week and a half now, is that it still has it on there because there is still some software that I do occasionally need. So I will jump to it briefly, do what I need to, and then shut the thing off and then move right back to my Linux system. Throw whatever file I made or something like that with the software and then move it over. Put it on my network, download it back over onto Linux, and then use it and manipulate it. And I'm going to start using GIMP, and that is the GIMP is the graphics software that is kind of like Photoshop. It's the Linux version of Photoshop. And I'm going to start learning how to use that software and start making like thumbnails through it and start making my graphics through GIMP.
You get what you expect and nothing extra. Just a very no-nonsense operating system. When we really compare the two, it's obvious that Linux does what Windows isn't.
I know he's proud of himself, but I think he could have said Linux does what Windows don't. I get what he's doing. He's playing on that Sega does what Nintendo don't.
For example, you are actually in control of your computer. There's no forced updates, there's no forced changes, there's no AI agents or bloatware or ads or telemetry or anything like that. It's your computer, you can use it the way that you want to, and there's nothing extra added on top of that. Another great thing is that Linux actually respects the hardware in your computer. New and old, it doesn't matter. There is probably going to be a distro that you can use given whatever hardware that you have. And most of the time, it's considerably less resource intensive than something like Windows. So with your hardware, you're actually probably going to see a slight performance increase. And I know Linux can be scary, but I promise that all of the distros have a modern desktop environment. Things like GNOME and KDE offer a sleek and very familiar operating system for you to navigate through. You can choose the look and feel that you want. It takes a little bit of research to find exactly what you want, and it might take some configuring to get it set up exactly how you want.
And that's the other thing with this being open source. You want your desktop to look a certain way. You like Windows XP. People have made all of the stuff that's easy to download and then install to make your desktop look exactly like Windows XP. If you're a big fan of Windows XP, if you're a big fan of Windows 7, you can do that through Linux because again, you control it. And that's what I'm finding so far with my experience so far in just a week and a half of using Linux. I'm quite surprised how user-friendly it's become because I touched Linux, back in the late 90s. And I mean, granted, it did have a GUI, a graphical user interface, but it was not friendly. It was a lot of command code through the terminal. But it has come a long way in the last 20, 25, 30 years. That's for sure, especially in the last 10.
At the end of the day, it's a possibility that you can do that, and I think that's great. There's a Linux desktop environment that looks exactly like Windows. This is very familiar. Or if you're a Mac user, there are some that resemble Mac OS, again, being very familiar. If you're a Hannah Montana fan, there's a Linux distro centered around Hannah Montana. I think out of all the bullets that I put on this presentation, the one that I resonate the most with is that it's stable, it's fast, and it's reliable. At the end of the day, it just works. If I want to go on my computer and browse the internet, I can do that. There's no nagging, there's no crashing, there's no random updates, there's no AI agent begging and pleading for me to use a Microsoft account. It just lets me log in, use my computer, and log out at the end of the day. And that means a lot. Before we move on, let's take a look at this. Is that not beautiful? This is the desktop environment from a distro known as Linux Mint. And you can see it's very modernized and it has an air of familiarity with it. Look along the bottom. Huh? Those are icons. Yeah, you can click those, just like in Windows. In the bottom left. Huh? Looks like a start menu to me. It's probably pretty easy to use. Yeah. Now it's missing a lot of the bloat, a lot of the ads, and a lot of the news. But you know, Linux is working on it. They're catching up to what a start menu should be. But I wanted to show this as a perfect example of what a Linux desktop can look like, and it's not scary at all. In fact, this is quite peaceful, right? Does that look good to you? All right, good. As I said before, one of the last things that I want to talk about with Linux,
I've kind of configured my Linux desktop to be a mix of Mac look with a Windows look. So where all of the bars, like in Windows, is all the way for like your maximize, minimize, and close are usually always on the right, I decided to switch it up and I've moved it over to the left like a Mac. Mainly so that I can start breaking my old habits of Windows. Because like I said, I have a little iMac. I have an iMac mini, and that was just to learn the operating system and just kind of be familiar with it. Just because, for me, my hobby is electronics and computers. I'm a nerd when it comes to those things. And I love hardware and software and kind of learning this stuff. But this is giving me the opportunity to, well, stretch out a little bit more, challenge me a little bit more. And I have a huge book. Let me pull it out. And this is, this thing is massive. I can get it back in the camera here. And it's the Linux Bible. And the thing is it's thick. But the thing is that this covers everything. And only let's see where it goes. Just this little portion. This little portion is in the beginning is for beginners. That shows you how, and it goes all the way through. And again, Linux is the kernel itself. All of this stuff will work almost in every single Linux, so that's why I picked it up, because I'm going to start learning it. I remember back Windows 3.11 used to come with these massive user manuals that had everything spelled out. Hell, even DOS had thick user manuals. You don't even get those anymore. Of course, everyone's just become so used to it, but there are a lot of people that don't even know how to use their systems, don't even know about settings. It makes it really hard for anyone to actually deal with Microsoft Windows, where we used to get these huge big manuals and you could pretty much find anything. But of course, this was all pre-internet, all of this stuff that a lot of people are so used to now. Got Iron in the chat. How you doing, Iron?
Is gaming. Obviously, PC enthusiasts play games.
Yeah.
It's a big use case for PCs. For
Very
a while,
true.
Gaming on Linux was considered more of an experiment than something that was actually practical. But Linux gaming has come a long way, and it's legit now. Most of the games that you want to play are going to run, and they're going to run very well. And I'm talking frames per second. Of course, Linux has those. Whoops. Uh-oh. Now, I'm not going to show this. I'm not really qualified. I don't really have the equipment to showcase this. But there are a lot of channels that are starting to benchmark games on Linux and compare them to the Windows counterpart. You'd be surprised that a lot of the times the Linux counterpart of the game actually runs a little bit better. Highly encourage you to look those up if you're interested in Linux gaming at all. It's very fascinating. But the reason that we're here and the reason that we're able to do this is because we all need to thank Steam. Steam obviously came out with the Steam Deck, which runs Linux. And the Steam Deck is able to run a ton of Windows games.
A lot of people know who PewDiePie is, obviously, but he actually switched to his system over to Linux, I think like 6 or 8 months ago. And that's all he's been using too. He's left the Microsoft ecosystem. I overall, this is what is amazing is how far behind I think a lot of people are. People are waking up to it because, like I said, over the last, I would say, about maybe already 3 or 4 videos. Clownfish TV is already done on them switching over to Linux on a lot of their stuff, and it has to do in response to Windows 11. Either their hardware does not meet the requirements, so they can't upgrade it, or they just are done with it. So they're going to like Proton, they're doing Steam OS, they're doing different distros and trying them out, and the fact that it's hitting a lot more now. I guess the problem with Microsoft has been happening all the way since the beginning of 2025. I'm just hearing about it at the beginning of 2026. The amount of information that's been slowly either it's been slow to get out there, or it's been well hidden by Microsoft. The people not paying attention to it aren't even thinking about it. So they just do their upgrades, they do their updates, and don't think anything about it. Then all of a sudden they get a new icon, which is freaking Copilot. What is this? And they tried to tell you it's because they're trying to do it's because they spent billions of dollars in OpenAI. And now for them to try to get their money back on it, they got to jam it into everything to try to make it cost effective. And right now they're maybe I might do a show tomorrow and we'll find the video of it. But there's reports, there is a possibility if AI does not take off specifically for like Microsoft, the AI could actually go bankrupt by 2027. This is how much of an AI bubble that everyone's been talking about. I think it might be a fad, and I think AI in general is going to have case usage for certain applications. It's not going to be general use. And I think they're trying to really force AI as a general use. But I think it's going to be specialty case. I don't think everyone is going to be using AI for everything. I think, especially with the younger generation, wanting more authentic things, wanting stuff that is actually more physical. They're going out and actually doing stuff out in the real world, collecting physical media and stuff like that. I think the younger generation has a better chance of actually pushing back and rejecting AI more than the older generation that is kind of the millennial, the Gen Z. I think are kind of looking at this because specifically millennials, because we grew up with that technology, and I straddled X and millennial, and you started out without the internet and without all of this technology, and then we started growing up and it started developing at the same time. Unlike the younger generation that's had it the entire time, I can see how they're going to reject. They potentially will reject it, and they already are. To a point. So maybe AI bubble is true because you have so many people. It's the same with the streaming bubble that's going on. I think streaming services have gotten so plentiful, but all of them have all of these subscription services and fees that if you were to subscribe to every single one of them, even at the basic level, you're spending like $260 a month on subscription fees to these streaming services. A lot of people cut the cord to get away from these large bills. I think it is a matter of time. Just like with the AI bubble, I think the streaming bubble is coming too. AI is only benefiting NVIDIA. Yeah. Yeah. NVIDIA is selling all the hardware and loaning other companies that they will be in debt to NVIDIA once the bubble pops. Yes, absolutely. That's the thing about it too. And Microsoft is starting to build a PC that doesn't even have the operating system on the system anymore. Is essentially got to run it off of running it essentially as a web-based operating system. And that's a Microsoft product themselves that they're actually putting out there. Again, you buy this equipment, but yet you don't actually own it because you can't use it unless you have Microsoft in their account. And you guarantee you on the Microsoft hardware, it's designed that it's not going to even allow you to put in a different operating system. I had a very basic laptop, and I was like, yeah, I don't want to, it's not going to upgrade to Windows 11 because it's older. It's a small little crummy little laptop. It served me good, but I couldn't upgrade it. So I thought, well, you want to let me put a Linux on it? I couldn't even get it wouldn't even allow me to even install Linux. And it was hell to even get into the BIOS for the laptop to see if I could try to change the boot or how it booted up and stuff like that. And I couldn't even get into it because the system was so locked down that I couldn't do anything, and it literally turned into garbage. Maybe I'll take another look at it and see if maybe I can mess around with it a little bit and maybe get it to work, but it's highly doubtful.
The reason it's able to do that is because Steam, alongside with code weavers, have developed a program called Proton. Proton was built upon CodeWeaver's original project, which is called Wine, which allows Windows executables to run on Linux. And what it is a compatibility layer. So think of it this way. You've got the Windows game up here, you've got Proton in the middle, and then the Linux operating system that your device is running. The Windows game runs, Proton takes all of that, translates that in real time to a compatible version that Linux can then see, right?
It's the same thing. That's exactly what Wine does and Bottles does for Microsoft programs. So you can go to a website, Filmora. I'll use that example because that's the one I'm trying to get to fully work properly. You download the executable so that you can install it. I got it installed. It'll load up. I can still do everything, but I still can't get the assets to download. And so that might be a little bit of playing around with and searching the forums and stuff like that and seeing what the workaround is. And then is going to the terminal and possibly making some adjustments or adding something in. But that's exactly, you can download anything. And a lot of it will with the compatibility layer through Wine or Bottles will allow you to run but Windows-based programs in Linux.
So it goes boom, boom, boom. Proton is the layer that sits between that, and it does it in real time, and it works incredibly well. But gaming on Linux is genuinely a great and smooth experience. It does come with some caveats, right? It's not going to be perfect. The biggest caveat that comes to mind is anti-cheat. So in games like Call of Duty, or Fortnite, or Valorant, there is an anti-cheat layer that has to run on the kernel of your operating system. Linux, being open source, doesn't jive with that very well, and so games like those don't run on Linux at all. Sometimes you're going to run into compatibility issues. It's not perfect, but it is very close, and it is very competitive with gaming on Windows. If you were recommended this video, I can guarantee that there are other video recommendations for you that talk about this great migration to Linux. It's the answer to all of your problems. It can do everything that you need it to do, and everybody who's anybody should switch to Linux right away. Linux isn't for everyone, and what I want to get into here is who should switch and who really shouldn't switch to Linux. There's going to be a use case for people to switch to Linux. It's kind of what this whole video has been about, but there is also a very strong use case for certain people to stay on Windows. I think it's very easy when you get in this loop of watching these videos to get into an echo chamber of just hearing Windows bad, Linux very good, you need to switch. That really may not.
Yeah, I'm not doing a good job of that. Yeah, again, I mean, if you like Windows and you don't want to switch, I'm not going to say that everyone should switch. I mean, I kind of would like to push more people to maybe switch to a different operating system because I think Windows, like I said, has gotten complacent and stopped listening to their customer. But if you look at the pie, when it comes to their financials, one video showed that the operating system itself is become such a very small piece of their finances that them taking a hit there doesn't really matter because they still have their Copilot 365, which is Microsoft Office. They still have their cloud services, and they also have their web services. And those are the actual ones that are actually making them money, not so much Windows operating system in general.
Not be the case. So what I've done is I have created a T-chart. I love my T-charts, and I want to separate the two groups into people that I think really should switch to Linux and would benefit from it. But then on the other side,
personally, I'm not switching since I don't have any issues. Others are talking about. My main thing is removing AI and Visa and MasterCard out of my life. Yeah, you want to know what? At this point, there is ways to get the AI removed down. Clownfish TV, I'm blanking on his name all of a sudden, and I apologize to him because I watched quite a bit of his videos. He has said that he has been able to get the AI to be deactivated. There are ways to do it. But like I said, in the case, you're probably going to have to find it on other streaming services on how to get the AI shut off in Microsoft Windows, because Microsoft keeps shutting down and getting the videos banned on YouTube. So anytime they show the workaround, Microsoft, I think, is forcing YouTube to take those down. Neon, thank you. That's right, Neon from Clownfish. I do understand the reasons to leave Windows. Yeah, I'm looking at it as, for myself, is more of a challenge. I mean, for me, again, I'm a hobbyist when it comes to this stuff, so I enjoy trying some of these different operating systems and stuff like that, and getting used to them and trying them out. That's again the reason I bought a iMac Mini, was just so that I could learn the other operating system. Just to learn it, to know it, and I found one that was on sale, fairly inexpensive. So figured, why not try it and see what it's like. But some people, you want to know, Windows is going to be what they stick with. And hey, you want to know what? Choose what works for best for you. I mean, in the end, that's really what it comes down to.
Are the people that probably shouldn't and should probably just continue to use Windows as they do. So let's get into the first column, which is Go Whole Penguin. This group is going to include people that are just completely fed up with the Windows experience. I work with Windows professionally. That's not going anywhere anytime soon. But from a personal standpoint, I'm kind of fed up with it. And so the switch to Linux, my driving factor to switch to Linux, is because I was fed up with that experience. Another good group of people for Linux are the people that enjoy customizing or tinkering things. Linux has a ton of distros to choose from, and within those distros, you can get even more granular with your settings and the way things look and the way things run and how you handle things. I mean, you're talking about things that look like Windows, you're talking about things that look like Mac OS, you're talking about tile management systems that are completely different from a regular desktop environment. There's just a ton out there. And if you're somebody that enjoys tinkering, you enjoy that level of customization, I think you are a very good use case for switching to Linux. Another group of people would be the people that buy a computer and really, truly believe that your computer should be your computer. This kind of ties in with the first one, but really, if you don't want to deal with the AI agents, you don't want to deal with Copilot, you don't want to deal with the bloatware or anything like that, obviously something like Linux that's going to be a very lean and clean setup is going to be for you. This one might be a little controversial, but if you really just kind of browse the web and use simple apps and stuff, I also think that you fall into the Linux group. It may be a little confusing because, you got to set it up and it's not somebody that just opens a box and uses the computer. If you find yourself just doing that, then the experience is probably going to be a lot better on Linux than it is in Windows. Things are going to be snappier, they're going to move a lot faster. I think once you get it set up and you just browse the internet and you just use kind of simple apps, I really do think that you kind of fall into the Linux group, and that might be a hot take. If you find yourself with a computer that doesn't have a TPM 2.0 chip, or you're just using old hardware and you don't want to upgrade, which I completely understand, we're going to be another great group of people for Camp Linux. And last but not least, you just want to. If Linux sounds cool and you want to do it, just do it. Go for it. Now let's split the line down the middle and go into the other camp, which are those that should stay on Windows. The first group that I came up with here is kind of obvious, but if you truly don't care about all the stuff Windows is doing, just stay on Windows. You don't have to go through customizing or finding a distro that suits you and then installing that or anything like that. Just continue to use the computer that you have. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And if you simply do not care, just do what is easiest for you and what makes you happy. I think that's...
And I will say this at 100% that if I ever seem like, or I'm really telling people and I start pushing people to go, you should go to Linux, you should, and all this stuff and become a Linux fanboy, everyone has the right to admonish me. Okay. I'm not going to do that. Again, I agree with him in the sense that you want to know what, pick what works best for you. It's just like anything else in life. What works for you, go and do it. I mean, I don't care. It's the same with religion. If a different flavor of Christianity or Judaism, I'm not even going to talk about Islam because that's a little bit different, but Hinduism or something like that, I don't care. Do what works for you. And it's the same with like even an operating system. To be perfectly honest, use what works for you and what you enjoy using. And if you want to challenge and want to try something different, then hey, you got other options that are out there to give a try to. You're not just stuck with Windows. I mean, you got Mac OS if you want to switch over to Mac. You got Linux. You got Chrome OS. You got other operating systems out there that you can go to. You don't have to stay in the same, but if it works for you, then why change it? I mean, it's the old saying, why fix something that isn't broken? And if it isn't broken for you, then yeah, there's no reason to change.
That's a perfect use case for staying on Windows. Another group of people are those that don't like to tinker or those that don't really want to troubleshoot anything. You know, other than the Microsoft account stuff, really, you can go to any store, any electronics store or big box store and buy a laptop, bring it home and use it. You don't have to go through the process of installing anything. You just use the computer that you bought. And again, if you're in that boat, that's a perfect use case for staying on Windows, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The next group of people that will need to stay on Windows are those that are heavily reliant on Microsoft apps or something like Adobe. The Microsoft Office suite is not available on Linux, and none of the Adobe Creative Cloud suite is available on Linux. So if you find
one caveat, I to a point, yes, excuse me. Yes, Microsoft Office, the Microsoft software there, won't easily translate to a Linux operating system, but if you use Microsoft Office in the sense of Word, Excel, and stuff like that, you still can use it through Linux just through the a web browser, because the Microsoft 360 Copilot is what it's called now. It has been for a year now. Is web-based enough that you can use Word through your web browser. You can use Excel through the web browser. The only downside is that it's harder to save the files to your own desktop, and it is saved in the cloud. I mean, there's a trade-off, but you got LibreOffice, which has all the same things and does exactly the same thing as Microsoft Office Suite.
Find yourself needing to use Excel or Word or Outlook or anything like that a ton, you're going to have to stay on Windows. If you're also like a media professional that relies heavily on Premiere Pro or Photoshop or something like that, or even just heavy use in PDFs and you have to use Adobe Acrobat, you're going to have to stay on Windows because those are not available or compatible with Linux. If we go back to the gaming angle, there are certain people that will need to stay and will want to stay on Windows. If you find yourself playing a majority of competitive shooters or games that rely on the anti-cheat software, Windows is going to be the camp for you because those things just, as of right now, don't work properly on Linux. And last,
for now, a lot of this I still will say for now, if Linux share of the market continues to rise, developers are going to start looking at that as another source of revenue and will start writing software with Linux in mind and have it. So while it may be available for Mac OS and Windows, they're going to start also making it available for Linux as well. And again, that's just as Linux continues to grow, if it continues to grow. So the more people that actually do switch to some kind of Linux distro and they're seeing that entire growth, you know, business is going to jump into it because it's a possible revenue stream. They're going to want to capitalize on it. So Call of Duty, Valorant, Destiny, Fortnite, well, maybe eventually they will make it a little bit easier for it to play through Linux. It's just a matter of time. Again, it's the same with anything. Right now, the value for a different company to write to Linux, write code for Linux and put their program on Linux is still a small profit margin. They're not really going to see it because not a lot of people are there. But as Linux share grows, it's just like anything. Well, people are going to go to it. We saw this during the console wars of the past. Well, where did developers and studios go to put their games on? They went on the popular systems because that's exactly where they could make their money. So,
last but not least, you just want to and you really don't care. Nobody should feel bad about the operating system that they choose to use. If one is easier for you to use or you prefer one over the other, that's totally fine. Just because you're staying on Windows or you use Mac OS or you're going whole hog into Linux, that doesn't alienate you from other PC enthusiasts. At the end of the day, it's your hardware that you paid money for and you can run whatever you want to on it. Before we end the video, I do want to talk to the group of people that do want to change to Linux and get into my distro recommendations. If you find yourself asking this question, which distro should I pick? I'll give you some very low-level recommendations, and I won't get too lost in the weeds. There are tons of YouTube channels that go over the installation process, the setup process, the differences, the pros and the cons of all different distros. I'm not going to do that, and I highly recommend you check them out if you're interested in one distro over the other. These are just going to be my simple recommendations to end the video on. The biggest thing to keep in mind when you pick a distro is you don't really have to worry, because no matter what you pick, you're going to be wrong. I kind of hate that side of the whole Linux distro wars. They're fine. They're all fine. But anyway, let's get into it, with the first group being the absolute beginner or people that are kind of hesitant to switch. I think for this group of people, somebody that's never used Linux before, or you're really on the fence about switching, the smartest thing to do is use a very stable, well-known, well-documented distro, and one that is going to be kind of familiar to the desktop environment that you're used to. This is going to include distros like the first Linux distro I ever used, which was Ubuntu. You have Linux Mint, and then something called Zorin OS. These are all very...
I have thumb drives with each one of those because, again, I'm new to actually using Linux. So I have thumb drives for each one. And again, as I said earlier, you can run Linux from the thumb drive. If you have a Windows system and you're just curious about Linux, you can flash it to a thumb drive, very easy to do, put it in, start it up, and then pick, when you get the choice, you can just start the Linux. And it just sits there and will run, use your hardware, but run the operating system from the thumb drive, not installing anything. And you can play around with it and see what you like, play with adjustments, and you can do pretty much everything while keeping on the thumb drive and not actually installing it onto your system. You can see if all of your hardware works properly with it. You can try other things. You can get a little bit of software and play with it. And I mean, you try that with other operating systems. You can't. I mean, you have to actually install it to actually use it. I mean, and that's been that way for a very long time. It wasn't back. It was way back when you didn't even have a hard drive in the computer that you put a disk in and there was your operating system. And it's not like that anymore.
Easy to set up. They're all very familiar from an environment standpoint. And I think they're the best distros for people that really just are starting out. The next group of people are those that are gaming focused. There are distros focused around playing games, which is pretty nice. There are several options out there, but the three that I went with are Kashi OS, which is built on Arch Linux. You have the ever popular Bazite, which is a mostly mirrored image of Steam's OS that runs on the Steam Deck. Very gaming focused. A lot of the menus are the same, very easy to use. It's great. And then the last one's going to be Pop! OS, which is a little more complex to use, but it's still great and very great for the gaming focused person. And the last group I want to bring up are those just searching for the fastest hog on the planet, the pure performance group. These people, if you find yourself in this camp, you know who you are. You want the most out of your hardware that you can possibly get. You want your operating system to be light speed, and you just want the baddest machine around, okay? That's this group. And I picked 3 here, and I think this is the most controversial one, but what I chose for this group would be Fedora Workstation, Arch Linux, and Endeavor OS. So take a look at this list, okay? Whatever group you're in, give these a look, okay? They may not fit your needs perfectly and they may not work out for you, but looking into them is going to point you in the right direction of what to go with. The most important thing to remember is to have fun with your computer again. Don't get caught up in the flame war of Windows versus Mac versus Linux, or the distros fighting amongst each other on the Linux side. Just have fun with your computer and use it how you want to.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And it again, in the end, it's your computer. Do what you want with it. And it was an interesting video to kind of go through, and we'll have some other ones coming up in the near future, but I'd like everyone for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. I am the host of all of the Good Titles Worth Taking podcast. Well, show. I keep floating between podcast and show, but I'm Drunken Emerald Arrow coming up. And then Saturday at 7 p.m. PST over on my channel, on this channel, you will find insert title here. Then next Tuesday at 6 p.m. PST will be Nerds Covering the News. And then back here for the next episode of All the Good Titles Were Taken. Again, this being the video react, if I run across something throughout the week that I want to react to, I may pull up another video, another show, Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays, whatever comes up. But thank you for everyone for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Have a great night. Have a great rest of the week, and we will see you this weekend. Take it easy.